Hey y'all, I'm going to work through some review problems for you to help you get ready for your test tomorrow. Remember that you do not get to use any note cards or notes or anything, so you need to be really solid on this, okay? Make sure that you remember all of your quadratic techniques, whether you are solving by square rooting, factoring, completing the square. You do need to know the quadratic formula, so make sure that you have that memorized. I'm not going to ask you to write it down, but you do need to have it memorized so that you can use it, okay? So there it is for you. Remember, square rooting and factoring are always your first option. Quadratic formula is always your last. So let's solve this real quick. First thing we're going to do is get the expression with the exponent by itself. So I'm going to start by subtracting 5. And then I'm going to divide by 4. And I lost my squared. That would be negative 15 over 2. Now I'm going to square root both sides. So on the left, I'm left with x minus 3. On the right, I have plus or minus I square root of 15 over 2. I made that an I because the 15 over 2 is negative, and the negative needs to come out and be an I. Last thing to do is to add 3 to both sides. And there we go. There is our solution. Okay, that's the first one. Let's solve another one. Now this one, I am going to get everything to one side so that it is equal to 0. Excuse me. Let's see if we can factor this here. I think that we can. So you could also use the quadratic formula if, factoring is not always your favorite thing. But let's try this out. Okay, so if I multiply here, I have 20. Here I have 6, and 20 minus, not 60. 20 minus 6 is 14, or 6 minus 20 is negative 14. Remember that each of the parentheses is equal to 0, and that's where your answers come from, okay? So this one would be 5 halves. Add 5, divide by 2. This would be negative 3/4. Okay? This is a quadratic, meaning that it's a second degree, meaning that we have 2 answers. Here is another one. Let's work through this one real quick. So I'm going to subtract the 1 right away, and then I'm going to factor a 2 out of everything. Now, just looking at this, I can tell this is not factorable. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula, but I'm going to use the quadratic formula with what is in the parentheses, okay? If I do that, that saves me from having to simplify later on, which makes life a little nicer. Now, again, I'm showing you how I'm plugging all of this in. I don't necessarily expect you to do this much work. If you simplify as you go, I'm okay with that. Do know this is not a mental problem, okay? So if you have no work, I'm going to assume that you got it from somewhere else, because the quadratic formula is not something you can do in your head. You can do shorthand for it and, show simplified versions of it, but you need to be writing stuff down, okay? So be aware of that as you're working on this. Let's see, we have 1 minus 12, which is negative 11 in my square root, which means that I need an I in my answer. I know we talked a little bit about simplifying the radical and all that kind of stuff. I tried to make sure that you didn't have to do that, but also taking that 2 out at the beginning means that there's no simplification that we need to do here. So that's always a good idea, if you can, to simplify by factoring out common numbers so that you don't have to simplify later on. All right, Charlie Brown finally kicks the ball that Lucy's holding. His kick follows a path modeled by the equation given here. Height is a function of time. What is the highest point that the ball reaches? How long does it take the ball to hit the ground? All right, so first of all, highest point is going to be the vertex, right? So remember, to find the vertex, we take negative b over 2a. So negative 40 over 2 times negative 15 is positive 40 over 30, or 4/3, which means that's the x-coordinate of the vertex. I'm now going to plug that into the equation to find the y. So I'm going to take negative 15 times 4/3 squared plus 40 times 4/3. I'm going to simplify that out. So I'm going to have 16 over 9 when I square that times negative 15. And then 40 times 4/3 is 160 over 3, which gives me 80 over 3. So the highest point that the ball reaches would be, and we don't really talk about distances in 80/3, so let's change that over to a decimal. So that would be about 26.7, and we are not given any units, so let's say feet. We would want to say some kind of units. Feet makes sense. He probably didn't kick it 26.7 miles or 26.7 inches. So we're going to go with feet on this one, okay? That's the first part. Then the question is, how long does it take the ball to hit the ground? So what we're trying to find out is when the height is 0, right? Because that's when it would be hitting the ground. So we're going to go back to this equation. I didn't leave myself very much room here. And we're going to solve for when 15t squared plus 40t is equal to 0. So the first thing we want to do is factor, and I'm going to take a negative 5t out of both of these. Oops, that should be a minus, my bad. You could factor out a positive 5t. I guess it doesn't really matter. I chose to do a negative because that keeps my t in the parentheses positive, which makes life a little easier. Now remember, we talked about anytime you have a variable that's outside, that's automatically equal to 0. And then we're going to solve this other one. So if 3t minus 8 equals 0, then t equals 8/3. Now, which one makes more sense? Obviously, we know the ball starts at 0 because it starts on the ground where he's kicking it, okay? That doesn't answer the question, how long does it take to hit the ground? So the valid answer here would be 8/3, or what is that, 2.7? Probably seconds, could be minutes. If you're not given units, pick something that makes sense, okay? I'm going to go with 2.7 seconds because that seems pretty reasonable, that's how long it would take the ball to travel. Obviously, he didn't kick it very far, okay? There is going to be a problem like this on the test. You do need to know how to do all of this to find the highest point at the vertex, to find when the height is equal to 0, when it ends, if you will, and hits the ground, okay? State the degree, name, and all possible zeros of the function. So the degree is 2. This is called a quadratic. Remember that you need to know the names of the polynomials: quadratic, cubic, quartic, quintic. And then all of the possible zeros. That's where we take the factors of 3 divided by the factors of 2. So all of the factors of 3 are 1 and 3. The factors of 2 are 1 and 2. So I'm going to take all of the top divided by all of the bottom, which is p over q. So I'm going to have plus or minus 1 over 1, plus or minus 1 over 2, plus or minus 3 over 1, plus or minus 3 over 2. Those are all of my possible zeros. Now remember, I said you only have to state them all if I tell you to. So this is an example where I'm telling you to, so you do have to state them all, okay? Describe the leading coefficient, degree, and how that affects the graph of the polynomial. Leading coefficient on this one is a negative 2. which means that the graph is going to end down. The degree is 4, meaning that this is a quartic, so the graph ends the same way it starts. So if I were to just draw a quick sketch of this, it would look something like this. Okay? I know it's a quartic because it has 1, 2, 3 humps. The leading coefficient is negative, so it ends down, which means that it also starts down. Okay? That's what that -2 tells me. You did need to know the different shapes of the graphs. Remember that the number of humps is always 1 less than the degree. Know how it ends down. If I was writing the end behavior for this, I would write as x approaches positive infinity, f of x approaches negative infinity. And as x approaches negative infinity, f of x also approaches negative infinity because it's going down on both sides, okay? You do need to know all of that information to be able to answer questions on your test. Is x minus 3 a factor of the polynomial? How do you know? So in order to find out if something's a polynomial, we need to do our synthetic division to figure that out. Remember that we're looking for the remainder to be 0. That tells us if it is a factor. So the answer to this would be yes, because the remainder is 0, okay? I am looking for, so this would be like worth 3 points. I'm looking for the work to justify it. I'm looking for the answer yes or no, and I'm looking for the explanation of the remainder is 0 or the remainder is not 0. You need all of those pieces in order to get all of the points, okay? So please make sure that you're including all of that. All right, divide. Notice that this is not linear, so we are going to have to use long division to do this. You will have to do a problem, where you have to do long division, okay? I tried not to make it too difficult, but you do need to know how to do that. So let's walk through this one. X squared plus 4 goes on the outside. 3x4 plus 0x3, don't forget that part, plus 11x squared plus 0x minus 4. Now we're going to divide. So what multiplies by x squared to make 3x4? That would be 3x squared. Multiply 3x squared times x squared is 3x4. 3x squared times 4 is 12. Whoops, I wrote that in the wrong spot. 12x squared. And now we're going to subtract. Remember that the first terms should always cancel. 0 minus nothing is 0. And 11 minus 12 is negative 1x squared. And then I'm going to bring down the rest of this. Okay, x squared times what is 0x cubed? 0x. And then x squared times what is negative 1x squared? Negative 1. So I've got negative 1x squared minus 4. And I'm going to subtract. Notice I'm not doing anything with the zeros. They're 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. I don't really need to worry about those. I did put it in up here just as a placeholder so I don't miss my miss that spot, okay? Now I'm going to subtract negative 1 minus negative 1 is 0. Those cancel. Negative 4 minus negative 4 also cancels, which means that I have no remainder. So my solution here is 3x squared minus 1. Now remember, if I had a remainder, let's say I subtracted this and I got 10, I would write a remainder as 10 over whatever I'm dividing by. Okay, don't forget that piece of it. All right, when we're dealing with i's, we're just combining like terms. So I'm going to put all the i's together and I'm going to put all the not i's together. So negative I minus 2i plus 5i is negative 3i plus 5i is 2i. And then 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay. Over here, 9 plus 3 is 12. Negative I plus 7I is 6I minus 2I is 4I. There we go. You're just combining like terms. Just pay attention to the signs. Those should be pretty easy, hopefully. Remember, it's easy to multiply the i's with the box. So multiply this out and then combine your like terms. Remember that an I squared is a negative 1. So we have 30 minus 14, which is 16. And negative 35 minus 10 is negative 45i. Now this one over here, again, use the box so you don't mess up your signs or mess up your i's and forget to, especially that squared one. But we're going to multiply this out. And then we're going to combine like terms. So we get negative 47 plus 21i. Okay? Rationalizing the denominator. Remember that we are multiplying by the conjugate. So we're going to multiply by 3 minus 2i, both top and bottom. On the bottom, remember that means that we end up with 9 minus 4i squared, which is 9 plus 4. Okay? On the top, we end up with 15i minus 10i squared. Negative 10i squared is positive 10, so we have 10 plus 15i, and that's our solution. Let's try one more. This is going to be 5 plus I. So we're going to multiply this out. On top, we're going to get 30 plus 6i. And on bottom, we're going to get 25 minus I squared, which is 25 plus 1, which is 26. Now this I can reduce because I can divide everything by 2. I need to make sure to reduce if I can. The last one, they didn't have anything in common, but this one does, okay? So make sure that you do reduce if you need to. All right, now we want to find the roots. This is where it helps to know those possible roots. I'm not going to make you list them out, but it's helpful to know them. I'm going to start with positive and negative 1, as always, just because those are the easy ones. So let's start with positive 1. 1 times 1 is 1, plus 10 is 11. 1 times 11 is 11, plus 3 is 14. 14 plus negative 10 is 4, so that's not 0. So now I'm going to try negative 1. Negative 1 plus 10 is 9. Negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6. And 6 plus negative 10 is negative 4. So neither 1 nor negative 1 works. So let's try 2. 2 plus 10 is 12. 24 plus 3 is 27. Clearly that's not going to work. Trying negative 2. Negative 2 plus 10 is 8. Negative 16 plus 3 is negative 13. And that's going to give me 26. Now I'm not going to try 3 or 4 because neither of those goes into 10. So I'm going to try 5, okay? 5 plus 10 is 15. 75, yeah, no. Notice that what I'm getting, I'm getting 75. Clearly that's not going to be 10, so I'm just stopping. You don't have to keep going if you can clearly see it's not going to work out, okay? So let's try negative 5. So negative 5 plus 10 is 5. Negative 25 plus 3 is negative 22. And that's clearly not going to work either. Okay, so then my last bet is to try 10 or negative 10 and see if those work. So let's try 10. Ten plus 10 is 20. This is going to be 200, so nope. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. 0 plus 3 is there, and that's negative 30, so that's not going to work either, okay? So it looks like we have one that there is no solution to as of what we can do right now. Now, did I go back and check and make sure that there was no x I could take out? There's not. So it doesn't look like this one is solvable by any means that we have right now. The one on the test will be solvable, but I really just wanted to use this to show you how the synthetic division works and what we're looking for, okay? So let's try another one here. Again, we're going to do the same thing. Do our synthetic division. So I'm going to start with positive 1. 1 plus negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus that is 8. And 8 plus negative 18 is negative 10. So not 0. So let's try negative 1. It's negative 3. 3 plus 9 is 12. And that gives me negative 30. So nope. So now I'm going to try the next factors of 18, which would be 2 and negative 2. That's 0. 9, 2 times 9 is 18. 18 plus negative 18 is 0. So we found our first root. So x equals 2. Now I have this depressed polynomial here that is x squared plus 9. I'm just going to stop with the synthetic division and I'm going to solve this, okay? So I'm going to subtract 9. I'm going to square root. The square root of negative 9 is plus or minus 3i. So those are my other two roots. So 2, 3i, and negative 3i. Again, I don't care if you write plus or minus. I just wanted to show you that there are 3 roots, which I know because the degree is 3. The last thing you need to know how to do is to write a polynomial. Remember that any complex roots have a conjugate as well. So this is going to be x minus 3i and x plus 3i. And then I'm going to have my other 2 roots, so x minus 5 and x plus 2. And I'm going to multiply this all out. So I'm going to start with these 2. When I multiply that out, I get x squared plus 9. Okay? And then I'm going to do these 2, which when I multiply it out, I get x squared minus 3x minus 10. From here, I'm going to multiply this whole thing out together. So, and again, you can use the box for this. I would very strongly recommend it. I'm not just in the interest of time, but you can always pause the video, do the box, see if you get what I get, etc. Okay. So I'm going to multiply all this out. Whoops. It's 3x cubed minus x squared minus 27x minus 90. Again, feel free to multiply that out with a box. Feel free to check me. It's entirely possible that I didn't. I feel pretty good about that, but just in case I made a little error, feel free to check me and let me know, okay? So that's pretty much all you need to know for the test in a nutshell. Don't forget to look back through your notes and just kind of know the vocab. Know what is a complex root, what is a complex number, what is a quartic and a cubic, and what is the degree, what is the leading coefficient, what is the constant. Just really understand all of that vocabulary. That's super important here, so that you understand what the questions are asking you to do. Know the difference between a factor and a root, guys. A factor is this. These are factors. These are roots, okay? There is a difference. Factors are in the parentheses with the x's. Roots are the answers, if you will, the x equals, okay? And there is a difference. You do need to know that. Be very careful about that. Other than that, just make sure that you study tonight, get your homework done. You can turn it in via Schoology, or you can hang on to it and turn it in by paper tomorrow. Or if you see Malachi, give it to him and he'll bring it home, okay? Otherwise, just really prepare yourself. Make sure that you're ready for this, and we will do our test tomorrow.